Regular board meeting of the Madison Central School District, Thursday, July 12th. You want to make a note with 5:35?
5:35, got it.
Call to order. Mr. Brooks will make a notice of members who are absent or present, and we have 2 members that are absent this evening, which gives us a quorum. So at this time, if we could all stand, we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. Just hold it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So that takes us on to item number 5, which is approval of the agenda, and I believe we have no changes to this agenda, so I would entertain a motion that we approve the agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Next is we have 2 items as a part of our consent agenda, and that is our minutes of our regular board meeting, June 11th, and then also the bills that we went through this evening, and Mr. Nelson, Mrs. Cecil, and Mrs. Schultz went through the bills. Other than a lot of them, any comments, questions?
A note on the minutes, at the very bottom, it's not part of the minutes, but it's just when they're approved. I had on Monday, June 12th, but I changed that to Thursday, June 12th in the official minutes, but it's not necessarily anything you need to amend, it's just a when they're approved, but just want to make note.
Okay. Anything else on the consent items? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the consent agenda items 7 through 8, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that that has been,
We need a
motion
motion.
and a second.
Motion, so moved.
So moved, and a second, okay. Get it done in a hurry. So we've got a motion now and a second. Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Next, then, we go on to the aspect of delegations. I don't see any. And we go to Mr. Brooks in number 10.
So supplemental budget, these are the areas in which spending didn't occur along with the budget lines, and so we kind of note them, so everybody's aware. The top one, the co-curricular travel, that's when we go to state events for all of our activities. There was a lot of trips to Rapid for state events this year due to Aberdeen. So then, and it's good and bad thing. We spend more, but yet we have lots more kids and a lot more events going to state events. So that's what that one is. The second one has to do with when we set up the year, we were having certain students in residential end up being used more day programs, and so it's shifting money from the residential to the day programs. The third item has to do with driving and special education program. We allocated it all into one location, and then on the state and report, they like it split out into multiple, so we split them according to classification. That's what that is. And then the last one is the driver's ed program. And what this is, we're not spending any more. The program runs over 2 years. And so last year they had a busy July, and this year they had a busy June, which is 1 year. And so then we'll have a smaller July this year, but then put them both within the same year, and we can't overspend the function. And so this would be a supplemental budget to change the allocation. So in essence, it shows we're using fund balance, but that dollars are already in the program. It'll just then reflect within the expenditure report. Any questions on the supplemental budget?
I remember we had a couple of supplemental items last month that we also adjusted, but if you consider the size of our budget, we come mighty darn close to where we're at. I would entertain a motion then that we consider approval and adoption of the supplemental budget 2017-2018.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cecil. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Schultz. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the, and adoption of the supplemental budget for 2017 and 18, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion is passed. Number 11, adjournment of regular meeting. Need a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Cecil's right on that one. Is there a second? Or does it die for lack of second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Further questions, discussion, non-debatable, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, declare we're done. All right, Mr. Brooks.
So we call to order the annual school board meeting for July 12th, 2018. We have quorum, have the members recorded at this time. Is there any nominations for president?
Nominate Tom Farrell.
Oh, I didn't know thoughts, I'm sorry, guys.
Where are we at?
Should I venture one for one now?
Yeah. If you need by the American flag, so that way the pictures are taken. I'll read the oath. If you could, that's right. If you like, we'll sign it once or you want to. What's that?
I like the really short.
Give Steve a chair to sit on.
No.
Oh. No,
You try and trick me.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, and that you will faithfully and impartially perform your duties as a member of the school board of the Madison Central School District, Lake County, South Dakota, to the best of your ability, and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified? Please say you.
I do.
Sign oath.
There you go.
And then we'll have Cammie's at the next meeting with that. So at this time, are there any nominations for president of the board?
Mr. Tom Farrell.
Tom Farrell? Any other nominations? With seeing no other nominations, we'd seek a motion to be cast, that nomination ceased and unanimous ballot be cast. You have to make that
So
motion.
moved.
Second on that?
Second.
All in favor? Signify by Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. President Farrell, you can take over the meeting.
Big question. Number 4, why does it say Cammy 1 year?
Because when we did the election, there was 2 3-year positions open, and then there was 1 1-year open. And she sought the 1-year position.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
It works out that for me.
And it won't next year because they'll be all threes. All right, good question though, Sean, very good question. All right, so then we're on to a nomination for vice president.
I nominate Cammy.
Okay. I have a nomination of Cammie Sims as vice president. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Nelson is the second, probably beat Mrs. Schultz out, so we have a nomination and a second for Mrs. Sims. Is there any other nominations for vice president? Hearing none, then this is where we would ask for a motion to cease nominations and cast a unanimous ballot.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Schultz. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, congratulations, Campbell.
Yes.
And she had agreed that she would do it if no one else came forward, so.
Question though, after her 1 year, what happens when you just wait or elect somebody else?
Next year, you'll be looking for a new president and vice president.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm still confused on the 1 year. Why do we have a 1 year?
Well, because Lori
Because
filled
Charlie.
in, Charlie had 2 years left on his.
Yeah.
He only filled in for a year.
Oh,
And
okay.
then Lori ran for a 3-year position, so we still had a 1 year.
Gotcha. I didn't realize it was only for 1 year.
Yeah.
Yep, so it's a 1 year, 1 year, and then.
I'm all straight now. We don't need to use the whiteboard.
All right. So we have our officers. Next is item number 6, approval of the agenda. There is one addition we'd like to make to the agenda, and that one addition to the agenda would be item 25A, which would be approval of the agreement with Madison Regional Health on both therapy and nursing agreements. We got their contracts in, and I think they're such that we would like to act on those this evening. So you'd add that to the agenda. I would then entertain a motion that we would approve the agenda.
So,
So moved by Mrs. Cecil, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that the agenda is approved. Personnel actions. Mr. Jorgensen.
A few different actions. It's about as loud as I can get tonight, sorry. Employment ending of Jason Little Thunder and Julie Barr as custodians. Then a request to hire Katrina Smith as an elementary custodian at $12.40 and with a 75-cent rate differential. We got in this week retirement from Lori Peel as a middle school paraprofessional. Also resignations. We received resignation from Stacy Anderson as a middle school physical education teacher, and Kayla Argon, as a high school paraprofessional.
So those are our personnel actions. Recommendation of the administration is that we follow those actions. Would there be a motion to that effect?
so moved.
So moved by Mrs. Schultz. Is there a second?
second.
Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions, discussion?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
And not that this is, I'm not, don't want to make an issue of it, but do we have, is there anything in contracts about teachers or individuals who have signed contracts having any penalties or anything for?
We do not have the liquidated damage penalties.
Thank you for
but
the words.
Yeah, but we also have the ability to deny.
Okay,
So we could say no.
okay,
And there again, case by case, you got to see what the situation is, but the timing isn't great. I'm
yeah,
not going to say it is, but we don't right now, but that will also be another item maybe for
down the
down
road,
the road next year,
yeah,
with some different language that you can apply and still have both, basically.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Some schools have it and some don't. Some schools have it and the hiring school pays the liquidated
Right.
damages.
Yeah,
So it's just all over the place across the state of
yeah,
South
and you
Dakota.
got to word it carefully, because if you word it that, here's the date, here's the liquidated damages, then it's not automatic. You can do whatever
Right.
time and they can, but you can also word it upon approval of the board and liquidated damages. So I mean, we'll take a look at that as we move down the road. Yeah.
and the coaching, just be clear on that, she is still planning on doing the girls' basketball?
That's our
coach?
intent. We will be meeting with her.
Okay,
And again, can't get into personnel right now, but we'll be meeting on that, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Further questions or discussion? Hearing none then, all in favor of approval of personnel actions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that they are approved.
Excuse me.
Open enrollment applications, 19-2 and 19-3.
2 open enrollment applications, and I apologize for the voice. Both kindergarten students, one from Chester, one from Rutland. And in talking with Mrs. Guzzi, I believe she already had these students into account, so we knew that they would plan on coming here. So I would recommend that we approve.
The recommendation is approval of the 2 open enrollment applications, 19-2 and 19-3. Is there a motion to that effect?
So move.
So moved by Mr. Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the open enrollment application 19-2 and 19-3, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare motion is passed. See, nothing on number 9. Just make one comment on number 9, that what is July 1st became a requirement through the legislature that there now for all public meetings has to be an opportunity for public to appear. If you followed the news at all out of Sioux Falls, that was a very controversial topic there. It's something that we've had in place for as long as I've been a part of the board, and I think it's a very good policy to have. Administrator report.
Touch on a couple things. The ASBSD and SASD convention is August 9th and 10th. On the 9th, that Thursday, so it's a Thursday, Friday, day 1, registration is 7:30 to 9 a.m. that morning. So if you think you're maybe going, if you could let Mr. Brooks know by tomorrow, only from the fact, if you don't know by tomorrow, it's fine. If you do, there's an early registration deadline where it'll be a certain amount versus a later registration, which we can still do. But if you know you're going for sure, then let him know if you would. And again, that's down in Sioux Falls at the convention center.
What was the date again?
August 9th and 10th, Thursday, Friday. And the 10th, I think it starts just a little bit later. It's not the 7:30, I think it's like 8:30.
And then concludes, I think, by 1.
Yeah, it concludes just after lunch, I think.
And we will not have a governor's candidate debate.
So,
Historically, when there's been a governor's race, there has been a governor's candidate debate, but saying it graciously, it was not able to be arranged.
so if you know that, let Mr. Brooks know. Again, that's in the convention center in Sioux Falls. And that's both the associate school boards and the school administrators put that on. A couple project updates, asphalt repairs. There'll be some taking place at the elementary school. Did they confirm next week or not?
Elementary was, what we called it, I think it was 10 to 14 days. I'll be around next
so
week.
next week and week after, and that'll be some sealing. And there's 2 different spots in the north parking lot that are totally crumbling apart that we're patching. And then the north parking lot here will get a seal coat, and that's going to be at the end of July, I believe. Sidewalk repairs, been in contact with them. They'll start taking place periodically. There's a couple of them over at the elementary. The main repair will take place in front of the main entrance here and going to the west, that whole sidewalk, that's all busted up. And there'll be about a 2-foot cement wall towards the end right now that'll be part of this project. And then it'll go at the very end where all the big potholes happen every year. That'll be cut out and that'll get cemented too, so we hopefully have it. So it'll go from one to the other. Auditorium lighting, we met with the drama and with the fine arts folks, the music, and we have some additional lights that we'll be putting in the auditorium, and we've got some dark areas, so we've been working on that. Just to give you a heads up, statewide openings as of the 29th of June, there were still 30 special ed openings. There were 52 elementary openings, and math, science, and music all range from 10 to 15 openings in our state. So there's still schools that'll be looking. I'll touch base on the policies a little bit later when we get to those. Summer lunch program, Mr. Brooks said today, in the month of June, we served 1,783 meals. Average, so 77 and a half. We thought it would actually be a little higher than that, but it's still a lot of meals. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that. I think it's been going really good, everything I've heard, but.
Yeah, it's going well.
And then the last thing I'll touch on is ICS Consulting and our demographic study. I was on the phone today with Mike Hubbard and with John Powers. John Powers is the one doing most of the footwork on this. And they've got all the preliminary information together. We reviewed that today. He'll now start working on putting it into the graphs and in the charts and in the PowerPoint presentation. So unless something changes at our August meeting, they'll be ready to present their projections on enrollment. Mike Hubbard will be here. John Powers will actually be here via the telephone probably for the presentation, but I'll say August 13th. At the worst case scenario, it'll be September, but right now, unless something changes they're not aware of, they feel that they'll have everything ready to go for the 13th of August. So that's all I have.
Mr. Brooks, do you have anything? I have nothing. Any of the other board members? All right, then that leads us on to number 11 and through 16. So we would approve, these will be consent items, and they're grouped together just to expedite the meeting, but if there's any of these that we would like to pull out and have further discussion, all it takes is one member to pull that out and we can continue to discuss it. We would pull it out and discuss it separately. So the first one is items 11 through 16, designation of the official newspaper required by codified law, South Dakota, would be the Madison Daily Leader. We have to designate where we would do our bank depositories, and we would use Wells Fargo, First Bank and Trust, Great Western, Dakota Land Federal, Credit Union, East River. We may not use them all simultaneously, but we would list them all if there were reasons to use them. We do that usually once a year. On number 13, it's to appoint Mitchell Brooks, our business manager, as treasurer of all of the funds for the school district. Authorize him to sign all checks approved by the board, including trust and agency and the impressed checks. Appoint the board president as co-signer of all checks approved by the board, and authorize Joel Jorgensen, superintendent, or another board member, and that historically has been the vice president, in this case be Mrs. Sims, to sign the checks in the absence of either the business manager or the board president. Item number 14 is the designated bonded employees, the business manager and the bookkeeper for the district at $100,000 each, and the activities director at $15,000, and then to designate legal counsel being Lammers Kleibecker LLP. And the final of the 11 through 16 is to appoint the business manager as authorized representative for the food service program, the title program, the IDEA funding program applications, and the superintendent as the authorized representative for all other federal and state programs. So I guess the first thing, are there any of those items 11 through 16 you'd like to pull out for further discussion? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion that we do a consent of items number 11 through 16, that we approve those by motion. So moved by Mr. Miller, second by
Second.
Mrs. Schultz. Further questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the grouped items for consent of items number 11 through 16, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare they're passed. Similar item for items number 17 through 22. Approval of consent items. 17, approve adjoining the Associated School Boards South Dakota Sponsored Emergency School Bus Assistance Act. That means that if we have a bus that breaks down, a district could loan us a bus so we could complete our trip, vice versa. We don't have the paperwork yet, but it will be coming, and this would just allow us to sign that when that comes in. So, also approve as listed all of our staff salaries required by South Dakota codified law, broken down by our certified staff, by our classified staff, and by our extracurricular. And those are all of the contracts that we agreed and issued and were based upon the agreements that Mr. Miller negotiated, so.
Yes, sir.
Except for the certificate. And then the other is something you want to look at, and that would be the standing committee assignments. I do not believe that we changed anyone's assignment. The good news is, Mr. Miller, yours are 2 years, so they're done for next year on there. So anything on the committees that you see?
I noticed, last year, Rob and I switched. They wanted him on the Education Foundation.
Well, we've had a discussion on that. Well, Rob is near, our understanding is that
I'm
you.
willing to, oh, yeah.
Are you on it? Are
But
you
you're
on
not
it?
on right now?
No,
Just Rob?
well, it has me listed here, but I just, if they were the same as last year.
We thought you were both on it.
Oh,
We thought you were our board appointment, and that Rob was the foundation's appointment.
well, okay, I
I believe that was
misunderstood
our understanding.
okay.
We'll get clarification on it.
I misunderstood that, under the Education Foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're willing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess as long as we're on committees, other items relative to committees? If anyone is looking for an opportunity, I'd be willing to give up one or two, but I don't hear anyone jumping with opportunities.
The only one I was gonna say, on health insurance, because I do that all the time, I mean, if that's something that would, or if that's not one that's very active, then you should keep.
No, it'll be very active.
It's a hard one to get people to volunteer for.
Is it? No.
Sold.
You don't want to be on that one, I
Yeah.
would take that.
Yeah, one of the other board.
Leah, do you want to be on?
I'm on it.
Do you want to be and continue to stay?
It doesn't matter. If she wants it, that's fine.
Well, no, I mean, at this point.
Okay. You two decide if you.
She can have it.
Okay, all right.
No, I don't want to take it from you, no, you keep it, I was trying to help
She's-
him,
she's
not
happy.
you.
She's trying to help you, not me, so if she's asking you.
I think I would stay just because of the experience I have now.
Okay.
But then if you and Leah would like to switch.
She can, if you've got more experience, it's fine.
All right, all right.
Can't you have three?
There.
There are three.
There are three.
Candies on there.
Okay.
No, it's all good.
All right. Anything else on the committees? Then we can come back over here. Item number 20, going down through our consent items, would be to appoint our surplus property appraisers, and that would be Ricky, Steve, and Stan Fox. And then item number 21 would be to designate our regular board meeting time of every second Monday at 5:30 in this room. 5:30 still seem to be the time the group
Yes.
likes. Okay. And then number 22 is a formality. What that's basically doing is it's saying it makes official the district policies for the year. Doesn't mean we can't change policies, it doesn't mean that we can't add or subtract, but it does mean that what we have in place today are the policies that we will operate within the district on for the current 2019 school year. 2018-2019. So those would be the consent items 17 to 22. We've had a little bit of discussion. Any other discussion outside of that? Anyone would like to see removed? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion then that we approve the those consent items 17 through 22.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Schultz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Declare the motion is passed. I'm going to push for a little bit. Thank you, sir. I think we may see the end. 23, we have some policies. Mr. Jorgensen.
Yeah, there will be no motion or second, these are just first readings. The first one, JECB, that's our open enrollment policy. The only real change is that there's a new part of state law. We're just adding that into our policy. That's on number 8. If you slide down, Steve, to number 8. If after the conclusion of a school year, a student enrolled under the provisions of SDCL 1328-40 to 1328-47 inclusive wishes to return to the student's resident school district or assigned school, the student's parent or legal guardian shall, or if the student is emancipated, the student shall notify the affected school board of boards of the student's intent to return to the resident school district or previously assigned school on forms provided by the Department of Ed. The student's parent or legal guardian shall, or if the student is emancipated, the student shall notify the affected school board of boards of the student's intent to re-enroll in the resident school district or previously assigned school no later than August 1st. However, if the affected school board of boards determine special circumstances exist, the student may be allowed to transfer to the student's resident school district or assigned school after the deadline. The intent being that in some schools, probably in some of the larger schools, that all of a sudden some kids were showing up that they didn't know were coming, and all of a sudden they needed another teacher, this is just trying to give the schools time. It doesn't mean you can't approve if it comes after August 1st. But if it puts you in a position where you're going to, all of a sudden now you need another staff member because one kid came in or two kids come in, it just puts it back so the schools have a little warning, but it doesn't really stop us from accepting. So, if there's any questions on that, but that's in law now. So we'll just add into the policy. The second one, the use of school buses. It's a practice that's going on for a long time, but we don't have any policy. We sure would like to have a policy. So, use of school transportation put by other entities, and we've had, whether it's DSU or the summer program or church or whatever, this has been going on for a number of years. We need to have something in place. This is just saying that entities and non-school groups will be required to pay the cost of driver's wages, obtain the service of a licensed insured school bus driver, pay an agreed upon usage fee on a per mile basis. In addition, in the unlikely event of a bus mechanical breakdown, it's the responsibility of the renting entity, non-school group, to make alternative arrangements for return travel. The school district will make arrangements for return of the transportation vehicle. And basically, if it happens during a school week or something, it's not an issue, because we have a bus pack, we may be able to do something, but let's say it's a group that borrows it and rents it, and they're going to be gone on a Sunday, and they're 200 some miles away. We don't have people staffed here to do that, so they just have to understand that that will be part of it. And then at the very bottom, required completion of transportation agreement, EEAB-R. Questions? And then all EEAD-R is a form we put together to try and make it so that we have it streamlined. You can see when someone's needing to use something. This doesn't happen a lot, but when it does happen, we want to be able to have a form. The mileage isn't filled in because our fuel costs change, so make it appropriate to work out. So I don't know if anybody sees anything that stands out on that form there or not.
What about insurance? How does that work? Like if there'd be an accident or something?
If they use our driver, that then falls under insurance, and then that's a per mile charge. We have the insurance rate in there.
Oh,
So
okay.
we charge them from $1.25 to $1.50 per mile,
Oh,
and that
right.
covers insurance maintenance and all that.
And again, first reading, so we can make changes going into next month as well. We just wanted to get the process started because we do get those requests quite often.
And back to JECB, that
Yep.
number 8, that was in addition to what we had? That's-
Yep, that's adding all new language because that's a new part of the law that came and was adopted this last session. It really basically doesn't really affect us, other than the fact if we were sitting teetering right on it, we had to add another section, and all of a sudden at the last couple of days in August, 2 show up, what do we do now type of thing. I'm still not saying that we maybe want to accept, but
Right.
it puts it back. It's basically trying to get it so that parents will notify schools if they plan to come back to the district. And again, it's just following the state law.
Any other questions on the first reading of the two policies and the one form? Okay, on to item number 24, candidates for board of directors. We're going to get that filled here.
I told you it would come down to another ballot because there's so many running. And we previously voted for Paul Nepidoff from Dubrook. He's also up for that seat, so I recommend we vote for him again. And we voted for Craig Boyan from Watertown, used to be at West Central, and he's also up for the other seat. So I would just say we vote for the same two we voted for before and cast our ballot.
So the recommendation of the administration is those two candidates. If there be someone who would like to make that as a motion. So moved by Mr. Nelson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Miller. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of going with Mr. Soma and helping with the second one?
Mr. Nepidoff and Mr. Boyan.
Okay, I had them both wrong there. All right. Any further questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Right, the motion is passed. All right, next, set dates for planning goal-setting retreat.
In looking at the calendar and the activities, came up with 3 possible dates that seemed like they would work as far as no other conflicts of activities going on. That was Monday, August 27th, or Thursday, August 30th, or Tuesday, September 25th. So 2 years ago, we met in late August. Last year, we met in late September. And again, I think it had more to do with the calendar. So it's at 5:45 on those dates too, because there was an activity, I think on one of those days, that was at 4:30, but it was a home activity, a middle school one, so I'm saying 5:45, that would make it so that wasn't a conflict either.
What was the date in September again?
The September one was 25th.
Which is a Tuesday.
Correct, Tuesday, yeah.
Right now, all 3 work for me.
That was what we heard both from Cammie and Rob also,
Yep.
that any of those would.
I would say the sooner the better myself, but
Okay.
depends.
I guess maybe being certain it's something we want to continue to do.
Yes.
I think it's been very productive for us on that, okay? So am I hearing that we'd like to go on the 27th, keeping it on a Monday evening? At 5:45? To 11:45.
Oh, we're getting out
I'll
early.
leave, I'll leave the end date out.
Just seeing if you're still listening to me, okay? So we would go on the 27th of August at 5:45. We'll have a lunch of some sort somewhere in there. And format of the way we've done it seems to work fine. Solicit and gather as much as we can in advance, email and
Yeah.
discuss. And we need a formal motion, I suppose, to set that.
So moved.
Mrs. Schultz gets that one. Anyone else like to make the second? Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none on item number 25, then we will plan for our board planning and goal-setting retreat to be the 27th of August at 5:45 p.m. Yours truly will be the facilitator. All right, 25A.
So we received in the mail day our contracts with the Madison Regional Health System. They're for nursing services and for therapy contracts. And so occupational therapy and physical therapy. And so the contracts remain the same. The only that changes is the rate. Last year's rate was $77 for therapy, was $77.56. It went up to $78.34. So 78 cents or 82 cents. The nursing contract went from $53.58 to $54.12, so and less than $1 on that also. Contracts look good to us, it's nice to keep them in a similar fashion. They provide us really good service, and it's very, very helpful to us.
So the recommendation would be that we approve both the nursing and the therapy contracts with those slight increases. Would there be a motion to that effect?
Move.
Okay, Mrs. Cecil, is there a second? Okay, you're scaring me, guys. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the Madison Regional Health contracts for both therapy and nursing services. Have motion, we have a second. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of those contracts signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that the motion is passed. Item number 26, adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Steve got it. Second by Leah.
Yep.
All right. Non-debatable, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare we are adjourned.